Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be going over the most played Pokemon of each type. And when I say each type, I am of course talking about all 10 types in standard. This is a standard video. Speaking of 10 types, you should subscribe to that YouTube channel. But anyways, let's hop right into things because this is pretty interesting. And the way I did this, well, I'll just show you the first card, which is going to be, and this is top. It's in like a it's ordered by the 10th to the most played. So the most played fighting Pokemon is less than the most played Pokemon of every other type. And I have weighted play value as the statistic. I actually don't know what to call this, but pretty much this number is if you looked at every Pokemon deck in standard or every list. This is actually data from Limitless and from 100 tournaments. I could have gone to like 150, maybe pushed it to 200. That's all I could have done for standard, and I decided to go with 100 as that number felt pretty good. I looked at the data, it looked really good. And yeah, so it's 100, the 100 most recent tournaments as of recording from Limitless. And if you looked at all the lists, the average number of Great Tusks is just under 1/10 per deck. So if you look at 10 decks, you will find one Great Tusk. Obviously, that's not really true because lists run more than one almost all the time, usually four almost all the time. So therefore, cards that are played in higher counts are generally at a bit of an advantage and generally better as well. You could just go by play rate and tell me if you're interested in that. And I do have a big like data set as well if you want me to do more videos with that in the future. But the 10th Pokemon here, the most played fighting Pokemon, and fighting was last by a little bit. It was Great Tusk, the ancient Great Tusk. I guess they're both ancient, but the milling one, I'm assuming, I didn't actually check, but I'm assuming that's the one that it was. This obviously is a card that's played in its own deck with the Great Tusk Mill deck. With Land Collapse, you mill cards in the top of your opponent's deck. There aren't really any fighting Pokemon that are teched into decks, like at all. A lot of the Pokemon on this list, or at least some of the most played Pokemon, are tech Pokemon or more versatile. This card is not versatile at all. Fighting is pretty bad right now. It doesn't really have too many great options, and like oftentimes it is hitting good weaknesses, but not now. Squawkabilly is not weak to it; it resists it. So, and even that's not played too much. But Great Tusk is, it's a pretty solid Pokemon with milling. It's the best mill card in the game. Obviously, there aren't really, well, okay, there's GUEX, but it's the best like mill deck in the game. It's the only mill deck in the game essentially, other than like Wug Trio. But yeah, that's not the best. But yeah, Great Tusk, not played a ton either, but it is played the most out of any fighting Pokemon, which is pretty interesting. Next up, we got ourselves Jirachi, the Pokemon for Metal here. This is first by quite a while. Looking through the list, I didn't really see any other Metal Pokemon there. Jirachi just sees playing a lot of decks. It is a counter to Sableye, and it's played a lot actually. It might be played more than Sableye itself, and it just stops Sableye. It stops a few other things, I think, but I can't really think of any off the top of my head that are played in current standard. And this has a weighted play value of 1.38, which is just less than 1.39 of Iron Leaves EX, the grass Pokemon. Iron Leaves EX is sometimes played in multiple copies, not typically, and then it's played in different decks, notably decks that run Grass Energy that aren't Grass decks, aka Giratina V-Star decks. Um, and Giratina V-Star is a pretty good Pokemon, played in a few different decks. The Giratina Arceus deck, the Giratina Lost Zone deck, and of course, also Regidraco, a fun deck that I've talked about on the channel recently. But Iron Leaves EX is really great as a counter to Charizard EX. It's not insane, but it is pretty solid. And sees play some, not a ton, but certainly some. Next up, the Dragon Pokemon is Giratina V-Star. As I said, it sees a lot of play. Weighted play value here of almost 0.25, a little less, but one's played in almost like a quarter of, or like almost a quarter is played in every deck. I don't know the weighted play value. It's a little weird of a statistic to look at. I will tell you as well. None of the Pokemon have over a weighted play value of one. Some of the trainers do, but they're not in this video because obviously Pokemon are generally only played in certain decks. They're not played in all decks. Even the more broad ones are just played in a few decks, and there are decks that just don't want them. But Giratina, as I said, in Lost Zone, you can play it. In Regidrake, you can play it, which is actually why it's above Giratina V. Giratina V is sometimes played in higher counts than Giratina V Star, not usually, but it could be. But there are decks that play Giratina V Star without Giratina V. There are also decks that play more Giratina V Stars than Giratina Vs. And in terms of competition, there aren't really any other good Dragon Pokemon. There are some decent ones. Miraidon was up there, Koraidon was up there, and I don't know. That was about it. Dragon's not a great type. It's a decent type, but not the best. Next up, we got the top lightning Pokemon, Iron Hands EX, by a bit of a margin. I didn't really see any other lightning Pokemon up there as I was scouring the list. Weighted play value of 0.354. So that's pretty solid. Again, it's oftentimes played as a one of if you're looking at Lost Zone and at Pao, and in the next set it'll be played in Lugia. It's not usually played in Lugia, but it could be, and it's just a really good card. And then, of course, in future decks, it's played more than one. Usually like a three of in future-based decks. It does depend. But yeah, it's a really highly played Pokemon, and is a Pokemon that can be played as a attack option or as like a main or secondary attacker, which means that it's pretty interesting here. It's really the only Pokemon like that. I guess Giratina Vista is kind of like that, but not exactly. But Iron Andiax still played a good chunk, and it's definitely the best Lightning Pokemon, and it has like some versatility with Ampy very much to take extra prizes, and it's mostly colorless, which is nice. Next, Water with a weighted play value of 0.422. We got Radiant Greninja, the only Radiant Pokemon, unsurprisingly. And interestingly, because it's a Radiant Pokemon, its weighted play value and unweighted play value are the same, which is pretty interesting and means that this is pretty crazy that it's here. It barely beat out Manaphy, was pretty highly played as well. Of course, Chimpao and Baxcalibur are played, and they are played in multiple counts almost always, but like they're not played as much, anywhere near as much as Radiant Greninja or Manaphy, which I believe are the highest Pokemon played unweighted, because they're played obviously usually as one ofs, but they're played in a really, really wide variety of decks because they're just really good. And Radiant Greninja, good card, can be used as an attacker, can be used, of course, for its ability. A lot of the time used for its ability. It is the best Radiant Pokemon by a bit of a margin. Radiant Charizard sees play as well, and that one's it's very good, but Radiant Greninja is better. I think most people would agree upon that. Now it's a little closer to Radiant Charizard, but in the next set it won't be as close. The gap will widen yet again with Blood Moon Ursa Luna EX, but really good card. It can attack in Chimpao and in Lost Zone, and it's played in Gardevoir. It's just played a lot. Next up, we got Psychic. Psychic's a really good type with a lot of different Pokemon, but the number one Pokemon for Psychic is Comfey. It's played as a 4 of in every deck it's played in, so essentially always, so that's really good. And speaking of 4 ofs, its weighted play value is 0.444. Fun number. But obviously, it's good in Lost Zone, and it's only, well, it could be played actually in Great Tusk, which was the most played fighting Pokemon, but Comfey could be played as a one of there sometimes, you will see, but I don't think it's super great. And with the new Tatsugiri, it will definitely be cut from there. But Comfey is obviously good in Lost Zone. Lost Zone is a good deck. We looked at Giratina V-Star. We didn't see Cramorant. I forgot that one. That is played, obviously. It's pretty good. Mirage Gate's good. Colorless Experiment's good. Comfey's good. In terms of other psychic Pokemon, there was Iron Crown EX, which was there. That was pretty close, actually, but not super close. It is played in as usually a 4 of, but it's not played to the same extent as Lost Zone is. And then we also see, I'm sure there's a lot. I don't have like a script, but there's definitely a lot of psychic Pokemon that are played. It's a very good type. Sableye is played in Lost Zone. Obviously, if you're playing Sableye, you're probably playing 4 Comfey and 1, maybe 2 Sableye, maybe 3, but probably not. But Comfey, really, really good Pokemon. Of course, we have Gardevoir stuff. We have like Zadu. We have just so many different psychic Pokemon that are ranging from like pretty decent to really, really good. But Comfey is the best one in the game, or at least most played. Next, the number 3 most played type is, or the number 3 Pokemon on this list is the colorless Pokemon Bidoof, which actually beat out the barrel by 0.001 plays per deck. Of course, there are Pokemon lists that play more Bidoofs than Babarrels, but there are lists that play the other Bidoof as well. So the weighted play value for Bidoof is higher than Babarrel, but the unweighted for Bidoof is lower than Babarrel, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, Bidoof obviously evolves into a barrel. It's a really funny Pokemon. And the fact that it's the most played colorless Pokemon is crazy because it's just a funny little guy. But Bidoof with carefree countenance is it's the best ability. And then Barrel, of course, drawing till 5 is really great, which did beat out Pidgeot EX um, by a little bit because it's played in a wider variety of decks and potentially in higher counts. Versus Pidgeot EX is mostly played in Charizard EX and yeah, mostly Charizard EX and Control as well. The number 2 type is Fire, however, with a weighted play value um, Bidoof's was 0.553, which is over 50. Like, it's played, copies played in over half if it's like distributed evenly. It's not distributed evenly, so not half the decks. Less than half the decks play Bidoof, but if there is only one in each deck, I don't know. This number is weird, but it's pretty over zero point 0.5. It is very good. Then we got Charmander, though, the fire Pokemon. Again, weighted play value over zero point 0.5. So this is played as generally a 3 of, I think. Sometimes a 2 of, but it has its attack Heat Tackle, of course, evolving into Charmeleon, the iconic Pokemon. Now, it evolves into Charizard EX, very good card. Um, and so it's played a lot of the time. It's played, as I said, usually as a 3 of in Charizard EX decks. Charizard EX is the most played deck right now as well. And yeah, as I said, played in high counts, sometimes higher counts than Charizard, although not usually, because the Charmanders are split up between different Charmanders. There is the one from Paldean Fates, I think that's a unique one. There's a bunch of different ones. But the number one most played Pokemon in the game, because it is the number one type, it's Charizard EX. The Darkness Pokemon, it's not the Fire Pokemon, which is kind of silly. But obviously, it's a really good Pokemon. The other Darkness contenders were like Roaring Moon EX was kind of close, but not that close. And obviously, Charizard EX played in the Charizard EX deck as generally a 3 of 0.612 weighted play value, played a ton, high counts, in a lot of decks, or a lot of deck lists. The only deck it is played in is Charizard, but it's obviously a very good deck, very highly played deck. In my opinion, a little overplayed. It's good, but it's like not absurdly good. It's just like really solid. It is the best deck, and it's played. It's like easy, it's fun, and so it's played by a lot of people. And as I said, it is very, very good. Charizard DX, the most played Pokemon in the TCG, is not a surprise, and Pokemon's finally got their wish of getting Charizard as the most played Pokemon in the game, which I think is cool. I don't really have an issue with it. It is a little overplayed, as I said. I don't love playing it all the time because it is very good. But yeah, anyway, that's all for today's video. Tell me if you like this style of video. I was thinking this could be a cool concept to make in the future. I might script it more, or I might like have more data to analyze, and more data to show you, because I only showed you 10 numbers, and 10 like pieces of data. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider liking, subscribing, comment down below your thoughts on this list as well. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.